All right, Tesla Chief Executive Elon Musk says his company's new humanoid robot could be ready for market as soon as the end of next year. Companies are already betting on the robots to meet potential labour shortages, performing repetitive tasks that could be dangerous or tedious in industries like logistics, warehousing and retail. So is it a positive step towards the future or just plain old frightening? For more, we are joined by futurist Paul Spain, Chief Executive at Gorilla Technology. Good morning, Paul. I've got to ask, humanoid robots, friend or foe?
I hope they'll be friendly.
That is not the reassurance I was looking for.
Look, what we've got is a period ahead of innovation, and robots are going to be a part of that. This is closely tied with artificial intelligence, and look, if they make them scary, we're all going to run for the hills. So I think we will see reasonably friendly devices.
Yeah, I mean they're not the friendliest looking creatures at the moment, I've got to say. They look still quite techy, which I guess is so that I don't also freak out if it looks too human, right? But when we look at Tesla's announcement, the kind that they've built, they're not the first to do this. They're certainly not going to be the last, but they seem to be determined to push this out the quickest, right?
Yeah, look, one of the hallmarks of Tesla has been that they do, innovate and iterate very, very quickly.
Happy to fail.
And, they operate in a startup mode, even though they're a reasonably large company today. That said, it's worth noting that any timeframes that you hear from Tesla, you usually have to take them with a grain of salt, particularly if they come from Musk's lips.
Yep, okay, all right. When we look at labour shortages in particular, when we look at the use of and we're seeing some pictures of the robots performing some what look like fairly basic tasks now, but this is the sort of thing you might imagine they would do in a factory, picking parcels for shipping out or picking products like at Amazon perhaps, where you're going through a lot of staff all the time. There's certainly an associated cost. How will manufacturers or big retailers like Amazon balance whether it's cheaper to have a human being doing that or a robot? Because that does not look like a cheap piece of kit.
Well, comparatively, the equipment, is reasonably cheap when you stack it up over time. For instance, the suggestions indicate that a Tesla robot, for instance, and even some of the robots from Boston Dynamics, sub 100,000 New Zealand dollars, maybe sub $50,000.
And once they start being produced en masse and become more popular, a lot of people are going to be out of jobs, aren't they, Paul?
Well, I think what we've seen in the past is automation, robotics, change over time that brings down the costs and the amount of, human, work required to produce things. And as that's happened, look, we're in a state now where we're still struggling to find people in lots of fields. So, I'm pretty upbeat that we're going to, get this right, but there will need to be appropriate legislation, and there's going to be a lot of work to kind of get these things right. But there are tasks today that I think will be very helpful for robots to do, and there are already lots of tasks being done by robots, around New Zealand. Now, we don't, see all of it.
No, and they don't all look like human being robots, do they?
Well, that's it, right? It could be a robot that's putting, jarring some food for a small business. On the logistics side, of course, there's lots of things going on there, orchards where it's hard to get people. We see this sort of automation, starting to play out, but as you say, they don't look like people running around.
Yeah, some of these images that we've seen, these figures are doing quite delicate tasks, handling an egg and that sort of thing. I imagine we will, not too distant future, see a day when we have these sorts of robots in our home. They are the cleaner or they are the chef.
Yeah, it's that next level from the robotics that we already have in our homes that we forget are there. The dishwasher.
Because we just call it a machine, right?
That's it,
but you would call it a robot.
Yeah, our automatic washing machines. And, I remember sort of growing up seeing how washing used to be done and think, what a nightmare. It's hard enough just to get the load of washing to dump it into the machine and then, dump it into the dryer. So we've got these very specific robots today. But I think, we would probably all enjoy some of the benefits of, having a little help around the home from time to time.
That might cost quite a bit of money, I'd imagine, at least in the beginning. If we look back at the retail side of this, is it going to make the price we pay for some of these goods to be picked off the shelf cheaper if it's being done by a machine or a robot, not a human being?
all of these things have a flow on, and I imagine that would be one of the outcomes. Now we've seen these sort of flow ons and electronics and lots of things that we buy where the prices have come down, but in other areas where they're quite human intensive in terms of the work, that's where we see the prices going up. So yeah, you can imagine that this is going to be one of those things that will be deflationary rather than pushing up our costs.
Okay, surely there's got to be an upside to a human being taking over our lives.
I hope
Paul,
so.
thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you remember the movie I, Robot that came out in 2004?
Yes.
The basic premise,
scary.
yes, of it was a prominent scientist had died, and then they investigate about this rogue robot that looks just like these ones.
Do you think, Paul, that we shouldn't be making them look quite like human beings? Because that might be the bit that freaks people out, usually at least.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a little bit of a balancing act here. If you make them, too human, and there have been a few TV programs where, they're just human actors that are playing robots. That's probably, too far to go. But even some of the ones that we see, in fact, the new one from Boston Dynamics that they showed off, in the last few days, and its head spins around, and to me that was like, this is something out of a horror movie. This is not how to get humanity
here it is.
on
Here it is.
This one here is this is one of the older
Holy
Boston
hecker.
ones.
Yeah.
That's the
Actually
one,
looks like
so now it's
Predator.
got a full-on head that will spin around.
Yes.
Great.
And
Not freaky at all.
that one sort of freaked me out a little bit.
Yeah, well, it
and,
does look like
I've been
Predator.
watching these for a while.
Gosh.
I lived in the States a little while back, and the NYPD had the ones that are dogs, the robot dogs, and there were a lot of threads on which was the button to run over and hit if you were freaking out about the dog on the street.
It's rolled his ankle.
It's all right. There's a replacement part for that.
Well, Musk has said that his robots, the Tesla robots, are deliberately slower moving. So, this is sort of part of what
We've
he's
got time to
suggesting,
escape,
that you
Paul.
can get away if it goes haywire.
Oh God! All right, well, let's leave it there. We don't need to freak people out before 9 this morning.
Well, I am going to freak them out. Just I, Robot 2004. Just saying.